everyone, and welcome once again to Healthy Living Central Florida. I'm your host, Gina Horan. If you're like me, you're one of hundreds or maybe thousands of people that have moved to this area, Lake or Sumter County, Central Florida, to take care of your parents. So whether you moved close or you move in or you're actually the real central caregiver, it can be really, really daunting and a little exhausting and confusing sometimes if you don't know what you're doing, especially with the legal aspect of it. So today, to help us muddle through all the legal ramifications of wills and estates and all that sort of stuff is Sydney Simmons.
Hi, Gina. Thanks for having me.
Hi, Sydney. It's great to see you. Sydney Simmons, Esquire. I love that last part. What is an Esquire, by the way? I've always wanted to know.
I actually don't know that I even know. I think it's just the technical term that you put after a name to designate that you're an attorney. You are a licensed practitioner of law.
I love that. It looks good on a business card. So, Sydney, give us a little background. We're here at Pittman Law Office in Oxford, and tell our viewers and listeners a little bit about you and your background.
Okay, so I'm Sydney. I'm actually local, and all three of the attorneys in the office are local. So we're a Pittman Law Office. Amy Pittman started Pittman Law. She's been in the Villages for about 17 years. She is amazing. She is wonderful to work with, and we all work so well together. So we have Amy, and then we also have Audra Platt. Audra's been with Amy for about 5 years, I think, and I've been with Amy for about 1.5 years. So it's three lady attorneys in here.
Love that, by the way.
We all work very closely together, and we try to give you the Pittman Law experience when you come in. Whether you're seeing myself or Amy or Audra, we want you to have the same experience. We want you to be welcomed when you come in the door, and we want to give you the same information. No matter who you see, when we're talking about your estate plan, you should be getting the same thing from all three of us. We have weekly attorney meetings and that kind of thing. So we offer what I would think is a unique experience. It's talking to us one-on-one, getting a lot of great information from us, and also making it personal. We want to know about you. We want to know about who our client is, because we can't develop an effective estate plan without knowing more about the client. You know, I've had clients just this morning that, they're telling me, oh my gosh, I don't know why I just said all of that, but it's a good thing. It helps us make a clean estate plan to give you what you need.
I'm really curious about your background. So we have three female attorneys at this office, and I've driven by here a few times, and I was always curious. And when I found out that it was, led by females, I was very excited. So talk a little bit about you and your background, how you got into law, and what made you become an attorney.
Sure. So I'm local. All three of us are local, and I think I had started talking about that. But I'm from Bushnell. I went to South Sumter High School. I actually married my high school sweetheart, so that's kind of fun. I actually had no intention of coming back to this area. I was, gone in college. I was like, man, I got away from home.
Right.
And then my husband took over my family cabinet business, and so home we came, and I'm so grateful. We have 2 kids, and, I have my mom close, so it's great to have family support. So that's kind of my background. How I got into law, I was actually pre-med. So I started at University of Alabama, Birmingham when I first went to college, and I took my first chemistry class, and I was, start over, let's do it again. I hate this.
Oh, that's hilarious. So you're like, oh wait, chemistry is involved with this?
Science? Never again. And one of the classes that I took for my major was a public health law class. And I was like, oh, I can get into that. And so that led me down this whole path, and I transferred to Florida State University later and started my political science major, and then decided to go to law school after that.
Where'd you go to law school?
At FSU as well. So
okay.
In Tallahassee, I had the best experience. I would go there over and over again. I loved Tallahassee. I worked in the governor's office some and got to see a lot of that. So I think that's a great place to go to school. It was awesome. So anyways, estate planning itself, before here I did litigation. So I did mostly trust and estate litigation, what goes wrong with an estate plan. And
you mean things can actually go wrong with this?
Apparently
That's
so.
why we have you. Okay, and so...
Yeah, it gave me a unique perspective. I think it helps me to see, okay, it's so important to put the right people in the right place for you. And if I can help you learn about your family for how to develop that estate plan, that's everything. That helps make a good plan.
And then just a little bit about the ladies that you work with. What are their backgrounds? Like how they got into law? I just always want to know, what inspires people to sort of start their careers.
For sure. So Amy, personally, I actually don't. I'm going to have to ask her. We're going to have to do a little segment after this about why Amy actually started this. But she's local. She's from Wearsdale. And she's just a business person. She's incredible. She's somebody to aspire to be. I mean, when she went to law school, she worked her way through school, and she went to Barry. So she worked and went to school and did all of that at the same time. So why she actually started estate planning, though, that's a good question. I don't know, because she kind of started in litigation as well at a firm in Ocala, and then came to the Villages area and started. But I think it's because there's a lot of need for it, and I think that's a big part of it. The Villages has such a large retiree community. It keeps us very busy, and I think the need, tailoring it to our community, I think that's what's important to her. She's very community-based. She wants to make sure that our community is served and served well, and I think that's why she does it.
So talk a little bit about this area, specifically the Villages, and we're Villages adjacent, but this is your bread and butter. These are the people. Talk about how special they are and the relationships that you develop with all of your clients.
Sure. What a wonderful community. I mean, we're so incredibly grateful. We have to do very little advertising because word of mouth is everything here. We'll see one person come in, and then all of a sudden their neighbors referred them, and they have this person come in and they're talking at the pool or at the golf course, and they're talking about Pittman law. So we're very grateful for that. But with retirees come this talk. What comes next? Who's going to make my decisions for me if I can't? And I think that we just have a lot more need of that because our population is so different. So I think that really is why you'll see a lot more of it here. When you're younger, you think, oh, I don't need an estate plan because I'm invincible at this point. Nothing's going to happen to me. But what I tell people is that I don't really think it's ever too early. I don't think it's ever too early to do an estate plan. My younger couples, people with kids, I actually think that's an important time to start if you have a family. But the problem is people come in and then they get a little scared. I start asking them, if something happens to you, who's going to take care of your kids? What's that going to look like? And then we'll start talking about spiritual preferences and parental, guidance preferences. And a lot of people don't have that same view. So I think that's why, too, we won't see a lot of younger people actually going forward with an estate plan. But my older couples, my retirees, which the Villages is getting a lot younger. We have a lot more.
Yeah, it actually is. Yeah.
Working people. Mm-hmm. And so, but they know, their kids normally force them, hey, you need to make sure your estate plan's cleaned up because we don't want to have to deal with the mess that comes with that. And we want to be able to do this right for you. So.
Well, speaking of that, when we come back, we're going to talk about the mess I was in when I went to visit Sydney and how she helped us fix our little estate. We'll be right back. Don't go anywhere. Hello, everyone, and welcome back. We're here with Sydney Simmons talking about estate planning. And so I have some questions for you, if you don't mind. Are you ready?
Maybe.
Got some real live questions for you. Okay.
We'll find out.
My parents keep saying they have everything taken care of, which I feel like that's probably normal, but I've never seen a will. How do you even bring that up without sounding greedy?
Ooh, that's a good question. I actually, and from the parents' point of view, I actually tell people not to give copies of their documents to their family. And there's a good reason for that. So your financial documents, your power of attorney is effective the day you sign it in Florida. So that could technically be used. And a lot of times parents become the children and the children become the parents. What? I'm not sure if you know about that.
I do, a little teeny bit.
But sometimes the parents aren't necessarily ready. They don't want somebody to take over, but maybe one of the parents has passed away. Now the kids feel that they just need to take care of mom or dad, and they might just want to figure it out for themselves. So, so it's not always kids trying to do the wrong thing. They just want to overstep.
And you let them approach you is probably your best advice,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think so. And so going to the question, how do you bring it up without sounding greedy? it's an act of love for your parents to have done your estate plan. They say they have things taken care of. Do they really? Have they moved out of state since the last time that they did their documents? Has it been over 20 years since they've touched them? And I think that a lot of that, normally your estate plan should be at least updated every, I'd say 3 to 5 years. So normally I say, you should at least dust it off and let's talk about it. Make sure that it's still good. I try to encourage my clients to call me. Has life changed? Call me and set up a review. If you have a trust, do you have everything done so that the trust works, so that it's funded? But I think that it's just being upfront with them. Hey, I really want to be able to take care of you, but are you giving me the opportunity? I don't need to see the documents, and I think it's fine, but can you just have them reviewed? How long has it been? And I think that that's, if I was the parent, I don't think I would be offended, or I don't think I would feel greedy about that.
Right.
I would hope that your parents would understand that you're just wanting to take care of them.
Right. That's a great answer. Okay. I'm single with no kids. That's going to be me. Do I really need a will, or is that just for people with families?
Very much not for people with no, very much not just for people with families. I actually think it's kind of the opposite. If you have families, at least the laws will provide that your stuff goes to your family. Where I see the complications with my single clients is who makes your decisions for you, and how are they going to have the ability to do that without the proper documents? So what happens is if you don't have a power of attorney and you haven't named somebody to make your financial institution decisions for you, if somebody needs to write checks for you, pay your bills, decide what type of nursing home you can afford or go into, the state has to step in to appoint a state guardian for you. And so I think it's almost more important, equally important, but if not more, for my single people to really sit down and think that through. Who's going to do this for
Come on,
me?
Sydney. You had everything, but now I'm like worried about me. Okay, we'll get to that later. But I guess I really never thought about it because I worry about my mom so much. But then I forgot about the fact that,
you still exist.
I still exist. I do. So, but with no kids, I'm one of those cat ladies. So I guess Rocky, my cat, will get all of my stuff.
And that's another thing. So where your stuff goes.
Yeah.
There are some limited times in Florida. I'm not one to think that a trust is always necessary. You know that. I think that wills are fine. If you're giving your house and you have one piece of real property, you're giving it to family. Because Florida has a summary administration where if you're giving your homestead to family, it can go through a shortened probate period. But if you're giving that house and it's your only house, you're giving it to a non-family member, it still goes through formal probate administration, the longer 9-month-ish process. Wow. So I think it's almost sometimes more important for single people to really sit down and think that through, so that way they have a plan of action, and so someone has their passwords and they know where they do their banking and where they have things,
Well, I'm glad I had you. We're talking today because I had no idea. And Rocky, my cat, will have to wait an extra 9 months apparently to get all my stuff.
Yes.
So if you own property, this is a great one for all the snowbirds, I think. If you own property in another state but live in Florida full time now, do you need separate wills for each place?
No, I actually recommend a trust for that. So in Florida, if you just have a will, and the will is based on your state of residency, so if you have a will, you would have technically a probate once you've passed away in the state of Florida and in the state where you have real property. So it's 2 probates. The second one is called an ancillary administration. So now we're getting more into a 2-year long process.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So it ends up taking a lot longer when you have real property out of the state of Florida. So that's normally what a trust is for. If you set up a trust, what you have to do is you are connecting your assets to your trust. And what I mean by that is we can title assets like real property. You can change the deed so that it's in the trust. And there's no probate on property if it's deeded into a trust. So I think a trust is very important for snowbirds, people with investment properties, rentals, that sort of thing.
Sure.
Absolutely.
So, I mean, but do you handle all that stuff, or do they have to have, do people have a separate lawyer for all the other, like the other state or whatever?
I do the trust. So if you're a Florida resident, I would set up the trust here. And then the only thing that you would have to use a separate attorney for is the actual deed. So I would give you a list of homework. When I have a client that does a trust, we go through your assets and I'll say, go to this bank and do this. Go here and do this. Check your beneficiary on this account. And then go to this attorney in this state and have the property deeded. And then they can always reach out to me for assistance or help with the deed, but that's the process normally.
So, Sydney, can you tell us what is the difference between a will and a trust? Because I have no idea, and Cindy doesn't know.
Nobody does.
And nobody knows. So what is the difference? Because I guess there is one.
Yeah, there definitely is. A will is not actually a way to avoid probate. A will simply tells the probate court who to give your stuff to. So when you're doing a will, you say who your executor is, you say who your beneficiaries are, and then that still goes through probate. So if there's something, an asset left in your name alone, it still goes through the probate process. So that's all a will does. A trust is a way to avoid probate. So a lot of people, the first thing they sit down and see is, I need to avoid probate. Well, let's pause for a second. Let's talk about what that actually means, what you're, who you're giving your stuff to. I don't always recommend a trust. I don't think that they're always necessary, but sometimes they are. If you have more than one piece of real property, I think we're more in trust territory, because if you have more than one piece of real property, we are at the risk of a formal probate, which is a longer process that is more expensive. And I think you can avoid that with a trust. So a trust it's a similar concept to a will. It's a way that you can designate an executor. It's called a trustee for a trust.
Oh, right. Okay.
You can designate beneficiaries. It's a lot more lengthy. But what you have to do with it is I'd give you a lot more homework with the trust. You have to connect your assets to it. It's called funding the trust. So you change your bank account typically, you change some of your beneficiaries, and I actually change the deed for the property normally. So so it's a little bit more extensive of a plan, but if you have an estate tax issue, which most people in Florida don't, that's a reason for we're talking about a more advanced plan if you have more than one piece of real property. And what I see that's not necessarily unique to our area, but a little bit more so than some, we have a lot of blended families, a lot of later in life marriages. People have lost their spouses and then they move to this area.
Yes, that's true.
And they get remarried, which I never recommend. But then you
have to get remarried in the first place, right? So
then they come together and they get married and they have kids that are grown. They probably maybe never meet. And so then you're asking for these two sides of the family that have never met to come together once you've both passed away. You bought a joint house together, and to figure out who's paying the bills and doing all this stuff together. I think you're asking for a messy plan. So a trust might be a good option for a blended family. Sometimes not. Sometimes it doesn't make sense either. But that's really the difference. It's avoidance of probate versus the probate process.
Huh. All right. This is a good one. What's the weirdest thing someone has ever tried to include in a will? Do you have a good one for us?
Oh, man.
Am I putting you on the spot, Sydney?
I don't know. I'm trying to think about the weirdest thing that we've had. I think, I don't know that it's weird because so many people do it, so I wouldn't call it weird, but caring for pets is a really big thing.
Yeah, that's a huge thing, I'm sure.
We've given whole houses. So
wait, what? You've given a house to a pet?
Yeah, kind of. We've given a caregiver the right to be in the house until the pet's passed away. So that's a thing that you can do. I don't know that that's weird though. So many people.
It's not weird.
It,
it's awesome.
So I mean,
I love that idea.
But yeah, oh gosh, that's really the biggest thing. Not weird, but if people do that kind of stuff, yeah.
Okay, so I got one more for you. It's a good one.
Okay.
If someone's listening right now, and I hope there are thousands, and realize they have nothing in place at all, what is the first step they should take if they give you a jingle?
First thing, come and see us or another estate planning attorney, whoever you're comfortable with.
Yes.
But start checking your accounts. Start checking your stuff. Where do I have things? There's a book on Amazon called I'm Dead, Now What? Okay. So
I love that. Straight to the point.
there's different versions of it. There are some that are they have jokes in them, kind of funny, that sort of thing. But I would start with something like that. Start filling out a journal to let your next person know, this is where I have my money. This is where I have this. Go here to do this. I pay my insurance with this. Social Security goes into this bank account. So that way people know what to expect, because what takes a long time when somebody has passed away is finding things. If you have a bank account here, a bank account back in the state that you came from, and then a bank account that you opened with your car loan, there can be accounts just sitting all over the place, and it can take a really long time to figure out where people have things. So that can take an incredibly long time. So I think just getting organized is point one. And then when you come in to see us, we'll ask for things like bank statements and all that. And I promise it's not to be nosy. I don't take scans of your account numbers or anything like that. It's impossible to do an estate plan without knowing what we're giving.
Right.
And then if I've talked you into finding all this stuff, then you might realize, oh no, we need to make things a little easier for, the next person, because now you don't even know where things are.
Right.
So I think that's a big part of it. And sometimes I'll take the statements and I'll make notes on them. Go here and do this. You need to check your beneficiaries or update them. So that way people can know what to expect. So if you can prepare that ahead of time for me, it can make it a little smoother of a transition. And then thinking it through. Once you've called and made the appointment, we send an intake form that people can fill out. And it's very important. People sometimes ask us, why do I have to fill all this out? Number one, I need to get to know your family and who's going to be involved. I need their names so that legally I can put them in the documents. But it also kind of forces you, we put a little box for an order in there. Who do you want doing this for you? Who do you want doing this? And what's the order? So that way, if you've kind of already started thinking about it, you'll know what to expect from me. I'm not just coming out of left field, who's going to take care of your pets and who's going to make pay your bills. You've already kind of thought it through. So I think just getting prepared and actually thinking through what that looks like. Silly stuff too. Does the lawn care person come every third Tuesday? Do you pay them in cash under the pot on the porch?
Right. All this little tiny
all the
nuances.
little stuff that nobody else would know what to do if you didn't tell them.
Right.
So.
Okay, I have one last really weird question, and then I'm going to let you go. Let's say that I'm bartending one night and some eccentric millionaire writes on a napkin, you know what? You're so awesome. I'm going to leave you everything.
Awesome.
How would that napkin stand up in court?
It wouldn't.
Okay, I was just trying.
But
anyway.
I really hope that happens to you.
I do too. There's always hope. Fingers crossed. Sydney, you're a delight. I'm so glad that we are attached to you, because I feel way better about our life and our finances. We don't have much, but it's ours and we want to protect it, right?
Just so you know, I tell people this all the time. The amount of things that you have does not matter to me. It simply does not. I think that when you work so hard your whole life, I want to make sure that what you're getting gets to the people that you want in the most efficient way. And if you haven't thought that through ahead of time, you're actually wasting more money on attorney's fees after the fact when it could have gone to them in a much simpler process. So truly, people, sometimes they'll come down and they'll sit down and they'll say, we don't have a lot, so we don't think that we're needing a trust. That's not always what you have, isn't always what tells me that a person needs a trust versus a will. It's your family. It's you as a person and the dynamics there. So the amount doesn't matter. I think a good estate plan is for everybody. So.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for taking care of my family.
Thank you.
Now, if anybody wants to get a hold of you, how do they do that?
So we're trying to get better about social media. So follow us on social media. We have a website, and then call us. Felicia, she's our director of first impressions. She's wonderful. You'll hear her voice when you call. And so we'll set up an appointment. Typically, people ask about the process. Normally it's 2 appointments. Sometimes it's more than that. It really depends on the person and how much we're doing. So the first appointment is a free consultation with us. So you come in, you sit down for an hour, and we'll go over all the stuff. You'll have gotten an intake form from us already that hopefully you would have filled out. And then you'll come back in another time and we'll review everything and make sure it looks good to get them prepared. So, yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Sydney. That was so much fun. And that's it for us on Healthy Living Central Florida. We'll see you next time. Bye.